Okay, so picture this. You're a developer, and you've just been handed this massive task. Tap into the power of AI, but you have to do it at a huge scale. Here's the job. Generate unique, compelling product descriptions for 10,000 different products. Yeah, 10,000. Your first thought might be to just, open up a chat interface, start typing in prompts, and then copy-pasting the results. But I guarantee by the 10th one, you're going to realize, oh no, this is an absolute nightmare.
Doing this the manual way would take you weeks of just mind-numbing repetitive work. But what if? What if you could just write a little bit of code that does the entire thing for you in, say, 20 minutes? That is the incredible power of moving from manual chat to programmatic prompting using APIs. And that's exactly what we're going to break down right now.
To really appreciate why APIs are such a game changer, we first have to talk about the wall. The wall you inevitably hit when you try to use only a chat box for any kind of serious, scalable work. The problems become painfully obvious pretty quick. Every single prompt needs you to manually do something. You can't automate it, you definitely can't scale it up to thousands of requests, and you have almost zero control over the cool parameters like temperature. That's the little dial that controls the AI's creativity. But maybe most importantly, it's totally disconnected from all your other apps, making it impossible to actually integrate AI into a real workflow, track your costs, or handle errors properly.
So how do we get past that wall? Well, we have to go beyond the chat box. We use something called an API, which is basically the gateway to real automation and integration.
At its core, API integration is really just about talking to the AI model directly through your code. So instead of you typing into a website, your application itself is the one sending the prompts and getting the answers. And that just opens up a whole new world of possibilities.
Okay, I love this analogy. It just makes so much sense. Using a chat interface, that's like using a food delivery app. Sure, it's convenient for a one-off order, but you're stuck with their menu and their rules. But using an API, that's like calling the restaurant directly. You can make special requests, you can customize your order completely, you have a direct line. You get total control. And this direct control unlocks some pretty incredible benefits. Suddenly, you can automate those repetitive tasks, you can scale to handle thousands of requests, and you can plug the AI's power directly into your apps. You also get full control over every little parameter, which lets you fine-tune the responses, monitor your spending down to the individual token, which is just a little piece of text you get billed for, and build really reliable, high-performance systems. All right, so the why is super clear. Now let's get to the fun part and see how this actually works. This is your blueprint for turning these ideas into actual running code.
It really just breaks down into 5 straightforward steps. First, you get your API key. That's like your secret password. Second, you install the provider's SDK, or software development kit, and just think of it as a prepackaged toolbox that makes talking to the API way easier. Then, you build your prompt inside your code, you make the API request, and finally, you handle whatever the AI sends back. And here's the best part. It's not nearly as complicated as you might think. I mean, look at this. With just a few lines of code, you can literally program your computer to have a conversation with an AI. This simple action right here is the fundamental building block for all the powerful automation we've been talking about. Okay, let's apply this to another real-world problem. Customer support. Manually answering every single ticket is slow, and it just doesn't scale. So what happens when we automate it with an API?
Well, the results are pretty staggering. This chart shows the average ticket response time. Manually, it might take a support agent 8 hours just to get to a new ticket. But with an API-driven workflow that can read the ticket and generate a draft response, the initial response time drops to just 5 seconds. That is literally the difference between a frustrated customer and a happy one.
Okay, once you start building, you want to make sure your applications are strong, secure, and efficient. So let's just run through a few pro tips to help you avoid some of the most common mistakes people make. First, and I cannot stress this enough, never, ever just paste your API key directly into your code. It's a massive security risk. If you push that code to a public place like GitHub, your key is out there and anyone can use it and run up your bill. The right way to do it is to use something called environment variables or a secrets manager to keep those keys safe and totally separate from your code. Look, APIs aren't perfect. Sometimes they're down for a second, or you might send too many requests and hit a rate limit. A production-ready app doesn't just crash. It uses something called retry logic with exponential backoff. All that really means is, if a request fails, it waits a second, then tries again.
If it fails again, it waits 2 seconds, then 4, and so on. It gives the API a chance to breathe and makes your app incredibly resilient.
And that leads right into the bigger point about error handling. You can protect your code by wrapping your API calls in what are called try-except blocks. It's like telling your code, hey, try to do this, but if you run into an error, do this other thing instead of just crashing. This makes sure that one little failed request doesn't bring your entire application to a screeching halt.
Now, this is a brilliant tip for efficiency. If your app often sends the exact same prompt over and over, like for a frequently asked question, don't hit the API every single time. Cache the response. The first time you get an answer, you save it. The next time that same question pops up, you just serve the saved answer instantly. This cuts down your costs and makes your app feel lightning fast. So, with all this incredible power, does it mean you should never use a chat interface again? No, absolutely not. It's all about using the right tool for the right job.
And this table lays it out perfectly. You're going to use APIs when you're building real production apps, when you're automating workflows, handling tons of requests, or you need really deep customization. But you should stick with the chat interface for those quick, one-off experiments, for rapidly prototyping an idea, for simple tasks, or when you just don't have the technical resources to write code. They both have their place.
So, what's the big takeaway here? It's this: APIs are the backbone of any serious, scalable AI application. To do it right, you've got to secure your keys, build your code to be robust with error handling and retries, and keep a close eye on your token usage to control costs. Oh, and consider features like streaming. That's where the AI's response appears word by word instead of all at once. It just gives your users a much better, faster-feeling experience. And that leaves us with one final thought. Now that you've seen the blueprint for moving from manual chat to automated code, I want you to take a look at your own work. What tedious, repetitive task are you doing right now that is just waiting for an API to come along and completely transform it?